you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them?
California is battling some of the most intense wildfires in recent history. These fires are tearing apart homes, scattering families, and leaving lives in ruins. The emotional toll is something that we can't even measure. Entire communities are being reduced to ash. For these families, it's not just about losing a home, it's about losing memories, stability, and a sense of security that a home provides. This level of destruction leaves scars that last a lifetime. Entire communities are at risk. The air is thick with both smoke and frustration.
And yet we found people returning to see what the fire had spared and what it had not.
Is this your home?
Yes.
I'm so sorry. How long were you here?
My entire life. Yeah, I'm kind of in shock right now. Just watching this house burn down here too.
You expect decisive leadership in times like this. Instead, we're witnessing a level of unpreparedness and incompetence that's downright embarrassing. Los Angeles, one of the biggest cities in the world, is currently grappling with devastating wildfires and a mayor whose response has been more about damage control than decisive action.
Angelenos, we're still going through it, and to any of you and all of you that have experienced a loss, the grief, the anger, the just utter shock, I've seen the devastation.
Why are you smiling?
We know we still have much more to go, and we know the winds are going to kick up again. But we got to stick together. We got to stand strong. And then we have to rebuild our city. We're the nation's second largest city, one of the greatest cities in the world.
They're all experiencing the heartbreak and devastation for themselves. They also don't need to be told that LA is the nation's second largest city. They need answers, they need leadership, and they need to know why decisions were made that meant that LA was not prepared to fight these fires. Well, there are calls for Karen Bass to resign, and those calls are getting louder.
Los Angeles is a city in chaos, and much of the chaos points directly towards leader LA Mayor Karen Bass. She has been fumbling big time, leaving residents questioning whether she's even capable of handling this job at all. We could also talk about the governor and how he got caught pretending to talk to the president while he was on the phone for damage control.
Here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do for I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
So I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it.
But the fact is, you are a liar.
However, today I want to zoom in on Bass and how she's handling LA's chaos. In this video, the spotlight will stay firmly on her. We talk about corruption on this channel, but let's not forget, incompetence deserves its own spotlight as well. And what's a better example than this situation right here?
Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL. Los Angeles.
That didn't make any sense.
But before we get into her cringe-worthy response to the wildfires, let's rewind and talk about some of the baggage that she's been carrying, being the mayor of LA. Let's get into it. Even before these fires broke out, Bass' leadership was under fire. Pun intended. Her promises to tackle LA's spiraling homelessness crisis is non-existent. Despite significant budget allocations, the city's strategies have failed to make a noticeable dent in the homelessness situation. Streets remain lined with encampments, symbolizing a broader failure of governance. Critics point to the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, highlighting reports of operational inefficiencies and wasteful spending. Programs intended to provide immediate housing often get bogged down in red tape, leaving vulnerable communities without help that they desperately need. So I have seen this personally when I was in LA for the last year and the year before. Tons of homelessness, kind of similar to New York City, but we don't have a lot of encampments because winter, it gets pretty cold and LA is a little warmer, but there were tons and tons of homeless people there. While Bass vowed to house thousands of people, the reality on the ground is the opposite. Encampments are growing, public frustration is mounting, and her administration's inability to streamline services have only deepened this crisis. Crime rates still up, public trust is down, and her solution to these problems is a whole lot of speeches without much action. And to make matters worse, the Los Angeles Quality of Life Index, an annual survey conducted by UCLA, revealed this year's lowest quality of life score in the survey's 9-year history. Approval ratings for elected leaders, including Bass, has taken a hit. It's one thing to inherit challenges, but it's another to fail at addressing even the most foreseeable ones. The frustration was mounting, and then it came to wildfires, a crisis that will fully expose the limits of her leadership and the dire consequences of inaction and incompetence.
The fire was coming down, a ball of fire. It hadn't made it to my house.
But then I woke up and I seen it coming, so I had to start evacuating. I grabbed my dogs, and I didn't have enough water. It wasn't water, and my house burned down to the ground. So
I smelled smoke. I was sleeping, of course, and my dog alerted me that there was trouble. And when I looked outside, there's embers flowing across my yard. My whole neighborhood is gone.
So when the wildfires hit, you expect the leader to step up. Instead, Bass basically embarrassed herself. Bass walked straight into an embarrassment of epic proportions. She looked completely unprepared. It was like watching someone try to freestyle their way through a pop quiz.
Karen Bass is under intense scrutiny after she was abroad visiting Ghana when the wildfires broke out in the city. She was seen returning to the country at the city's airport, where she refused to comment on the situation.
Fire chiefs say that they're really stretched to the limit and running out of water. What have you got to say to that? Have you no response to that? Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor?
And adding more fuel to the fire, pun intended, Bass cut $17 million from the fire department budget earlier this year. Probably a bad idea. During the press briefing, a reporter grilled her about the low water pressure on the front lines, delayed air support, and missing resources.
Mayor Bass, I've been on the fire lines the last 2 days. I've never seen firefighters this desperate. At fire hydrants, water not coming out, the pressure so low, the number one tool that they use to fight these fires, not there. How frustrated are you about that? And also, I'm getting texts right now from the Palisades Highlands community. We're almost 48 hours after this fire started. There's not resources up there. The hydrants aren't working. Where's the National Guard? Where are miles and miles of water tenders? How are we addressing this?
Well,
Your reaction.
First of all, you asked me, was I frustrated by this? Of course, because we all know that this has been an unprecedented event. We also know that fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, and that the number one problem, especially on Wednesday, was the fact that we weren't able to do the air support because of the winds. And so, of course, I am absolutely frustrated by that. I am not sure that is correct, that there are no resources up there.
Her response, a really terrible explanation about wind conditions and outdated hydrants that left a lot of residents furious. They're losing their homes out here. And to make matters worse, Bass even defended the budget cuts to the fire department by claiming it didn't make much of a difference in the response.
Obviously, it's a challenge right now. They're bringing in firefighters from all across the western region. But can you address the criticism now over the budget issue and the slashing, $17 million slashing?
I think if you go back and look at the reductions that were made, there were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation that we were dealing with over the last couple of days. And then there was a little bit of confusion because money was allocated to be distributed later on, which was actually going to support salaries and other parts of the fire department that were distributed a little later. So I think it's most important to understand that we were in tough budgetary times, everybody knew that, but that the impact of our budget really did not impact what we've been going through over the last few days.
That is ridiculous. That's a tough pill to swallow from anyone. When firefighters are on the front lines, we're struggling with inadequate equipment and resources. They don't actually agree with her at all.
Joining me now live, the chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department, Kristen Crowley. Thank you for talking to us today.
Yes.
Most of the criticism has been directed towards the city of Los Angeles, towards Mayor Karen Bass, but it's also been directed towards the administration, the budget. There's so much talk about it. It was cut $17 million. It was cut this. It wasn't cut at all, according to one newspaper. Was your budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 cut?
I can tell you, I'm going to even go back further than that. Again, since day one, we've identified huge gaps in regard to our service delivery and our ability from our firefighters, boots on the ground, to do their jobs. Since day one, this is my third budget as we're going into 25-26. What I can tell you is we are still understaffed, we're still under-resourced, and we're still underfunded. So with that, whether it's $7 million, $10 million.
But was the budget cut, Chief?
Yes, it was cut. and it did impact our ability to provide service.
The idea that slashing millions of dollars from a budget had no impact sounds like nonsense to anyone who understands the importance of a well-funded emergency services. Social media exploded with clips of her stammering with their blank stares, just embarrassing herself. These fires are out of control, and it looks like the mayor's out of control too. These wildfires are not an isolated problem. It's a part of a larger pattern of incompetence that has been plaguing her administration. Bass has repeatedly promised sweeping changes, but when the rubber meets the road, she's either absent or scrambling to catch up. And that's when things get even more frustrating. These fires are predictable. California has a fire season. This is not some spontaneous event. Emergency preparedness should be at the top of her agenda. Yet, here we are, people are left wondering, without their homes, if she can't handle a crisis that we all saw coming, how can she possibly manage the unexpected? And let's not forget that moment where she is caught dodging questions at the airport after returning from Ghana, where she's been attending a presidential inauguration. One of the reporters asked her directly, do you owe the citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Bass' response?
Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Silence. Not a word. Just imagine, in the middle of the city's worst crisis, billions of dollars are going to be gone, where the people need some reinsurance, some leadership, and all they got was an empty, blank stare.
Lost everything in the Eaton fire, and tonight they're coming together to cope with the tragedy. 8 members of the Williams family all lost their homes in the Eaton fire.
Absolutely surreal. Like nothing you could ever imagine, and not only just for me personally, but for the community that we've been in over 50 years.
The footage of her muted response obviously spread it like wildfire, pun intended again, and only deepened the community's frustration. It's hard to overstate how bad this looked. In a moment that demanded clarity, accountability, honesty, Bass just seemed to freeze, leaving everyone wondering if she had any grasp of this situation at all. Without surprise, the public opinion has turned against her. People are mad, people want better, they deserve better, calling out her leadership skills, saying that, hey, if she's a leader, we're all doomed here. Even local officials are beginning to distance themselves.
Well, Los Angeles City Councilwoman Tracy Park represents the 11th District of LA, which includes Pacific Palisades, where almost 27 square miles have now been wiped out. And now this issue of the fire chief's budget being slashed by $18 million has come to the forefront. Are those budget cuts having a direct impact on how firefighters are fighting these fires right now?
So I will say that we have suffered from chronic underinvestment in both our critical infrastructure and our public safety resources. I heard the frustration of our firefighters loud and clear over the course of the efforts to fight the fire about the water resources.
So what's next? Bass' credibility is hanging on by a thread, and these fires have only intensified the scrutiny of her administration. There's talk of investigations into the LA's emergency preparedness protocols, and some people are even whispering about a recall effort. You guys may remember Shang Tao, the mayor of Oakland, she got recalled. So whether Karen Bass can weather this storm remains to be seen, but one thing is clear, LA is in a terrible position. They definitely deserve better. Karen Bass has fumbled handling this crisis. She was not prepared, she made some bad decisions, and now the economic devastation caused by these wildfires will be staggering. Preliminary estimates suggest billions of dollars in damages as homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure are reduced to ash. For the families affected, it's not just the financial loss, it's the emotional toll of losing everything that they built. Entire communities are left displaced, and many people are unsure they're ever going to be able to rebuild.
We met Laura Postotnik and her partner Jeffrey Swartz as they first discovered their home destroyed.
I can't even put this into words. I'm just sick and numb. That's the 2 words I will say.
The human toll is equally heart-wrenching. Lives lost, others injured, and thousands are forced into overcrowded shelters. They have to find a way to make it to the next day. The destruction has far-reaching consequences, from skyrocketing insurance rates to the loss of generational wealth as families watch their properties go up in flames. All the while, the city's leadership seems more focused on deflecting blame, trying to find who else we could blame for this, than addressing the root issues or providing meaningful relief. For LA's Mayor Karen Bass, this was her moment to shine, and she completely blew it. Her tenure is shaping up to be one of the worst in mayoral history. From the homelessness situations to wildfires to crime, her tenure is shaping up to be one of the missed opportunities and avoidable disasters. Let's hope things get better for the people in that area. Thoughts and prayers to the people who are suffering right now. It's unfortunate that we have a new year and such a devastating thing is happening to people. It sucks. Again, thoughts and prayers to the people who are involved in the situation. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you believe that Karen Bass did everything she could? Do you think she made a mistake? Do you think that she's getting too much blame for this? Let me know. Put in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.